Absolutely. One of the things in an upcoming challenge I have is to go through your supplements and throw away the ones that are crap. And most people, they're like, oh, yeah, it was cheap and you got it at some big warehouse, but it didn't give you anything. It didn't give you what you needed in that moment. Our body's a lot like a highway where, we have these detours when we have a symptom. And if you shuttle everyone on the same detour, it's going to get congested, So supplements work by diverting where the traffic goes, to reconnect it and put it back together. So we don't all take the same exit. We don't all have the same detours, so we have to look at that holistically with a provider that really can understand what's specific to you, and then utilize high quality supplements that are actually absorbable, that your body can actually use so that you can repair that highway.
Have you been feeling off? You know what? Your hormones might be out of whack. Take my quiz to discover your personalized hormone imbalance and get a free report with your results. Learn what's really going on with your hormones and start feeling like yourself again. Just visit the website quiz.hormoneshelp.com to take the hormone quiz now. Oh, Dr. Tricia Pingel, we're going to talk about some important stuff today. I love talking about this topic, especially with somebody who is so immersed in the stress component. I'm so happy to have you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be here.
I know. I'm so glad to have you. And, here's the cool thing, everybody. Tricia and I have known each other for a long time, and I just love Dr. Tricia. She's got so much of a wealth of knowledge, and she has the cutest little baby piggy also. Little baby dog.
She's sleeping. I would show her. Maybe she'll wake up. Maybe at the end, I'll wake her up and show you. She's my cute little bulldog.
Yes, and she got to come to. So we are involved in the same professional group, and she's been able to come to some of our events with Dr. Tricia, and probably will make an appearance along with my dog throughout this conversation. So if people are watching it online, we'll have our babies. So we're going to talk today specifically about the biggest hormonal problem most people have that they don't even realize they have, and how we may be treating it inappropriately. And Dr. Tricia is going to really help you understand that, right? So before we get started, I'd love for you to share why this particular subject is so important to you. I'd love for you to share that part of your story.
You mean as far as stress? I mean, we're surrounded by stress. And I think like so many women out there, I have a wealth of stories that have just compounded over the years on, just being a survivor, being a woman that powers through and a woman that just keeps charging forward at the expense of my own health. Yeah, I grew up, I was born into the modeling industry. So like the minute I was born, it was like in front of a camera. So I was already kind of immersed in what we now see as a social media world back then, where everyone's looking at you from the outside and you're just trying to be perfect and you're just trying to be what everyone else wants. And then fast forward in life, you have, parents divorcing, you have parents dying, you have marriage, you have kids, you have medical school, you have all these things. And we're taught to just keep chugging along, just keep powering through, add more, be available, push yourself to extremes. And one day, as it happened to me, it all just comes to a head and your health takes a serious impact. And all of these symptoms that I'd had for years, stomach aches, constipation, heavy periods, hair loss, anxiety, poor sleep, were just dismissed. Oh, it's normal. It's normal for you to have, that's just life. Yeah, deal with it. Yep, that's just the way it goes, and at some point you just realize, wait a minute, there is something here that we're not paying attention to. And that is the impact of the hormone cortisol on the rest of our body, on our digestion, on our blood sugar management, our energy production, our sleep, our mood, our hormones, and how these external stressors in our life that we just power through ultimately cause stress inside our body. And we end up just stuck it and it takes us down. And I don't know, I'm sure you've been there as well. Most women, when I talk to them, they say, yeah, there was a moment where I was out, I was down, I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and I lost my joy and my excitement for life. And so I'm here to bring that back. I'm here to reconnect us with ourselves and reconnect us with each other and really start to pay attention to how much stress are we willing to take at the expense of our health, and what simple things can we do every single day to completely change it? It isn't rocket science. Luckily, it's just being mindful. So I'm psyched to talk about this. I'm all in. Let's do this.
Like I said, it's funny. I make this joke all the time, but I truly mean it. Having had a clinic for 20 years, when I get a woman, and it's so rare, like I had a woman one time that was like, no, I would say stress really isn't a problem for me. It hasn't been for a long time. And my jaw hit the floor and I was like, okay, I need an employee of the month plaque. You're going to be on it for the only person I've ever met who doesn't have this as a considerable part of their life. Right?
If you asked me, you'd be like, hey, Dr. P, are you under any stress? And I'd be like, oh, I have a husband and a job and kids and whatever. It's great. Life is great. I don't think we recognize it. We've adapted. We're surviving and we're survival of the fittest. We're adapting to this level of stress that is now normal. And almost every single client that comes in to see me, I know it's stress related, right? Because I look at their labs, I get and I say, what's your stress level? And they're like, oh, my life is good, Dr. P. And I'm like, that's not what I asked. Life can be good and you could be really impacted by stress. And you could be treating something like in your world, you could be giving hormones for hot flashes, but the hot flashes are actually due to cortisol imbalance and not to estrogen. And I think we need to make the public more aware of this. Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is, as somebody who's been an advocate for women's health and particularly access to hormone replacement, there's a bunch of companies that have, particularly online, jumped on the bandwagon. And now it's kind of become this panacea. Oh, you just need, estrogen replacement and progesterone and testosterone. And magically, everything that has happened in your life up until this point is just going to be completely ameliorated by taking these hormones, which are by no means even close to accurate. Because if you don't, address the stress chemistry, those hormones are not going to work properly.
They aren't. No, it's a big conversation to have. And most of the women that have stress issues, are trying everything. They're doing everything right. They're eating right. They're trying to exercise. They're trying to take action and be proactive in their health. But that level of control that we have over everything, this need to want to control everything and fix everything, ironically, can also be to our demise. We do have to recognize that the cortisol part of it is something that also needs to be addressed. So we need to nourish our bodies, our souls, our lives as well, so that all these wonderful things that we're implementing have a better impact.
Right, right. And I think, the other thing is we always sort of rationalize our stress away. So if you're somebody, I like to call it threshold, so some people have a shoebox size threshold, right? They don't have a high capacity. It's genetic. There's a million other things. They may not have a high capacity for prolonged, protracted stress. We know that from some of the genetic research. And then other people can have like a wardrobe size box. And those are the people, I don't know about you, but those are the people that I worry about the most is because they don't even recognize their threshold anymore because they've been able to take on so much and shove so much crap in their stress backpack that they're completely oblivious to their own experience anymore.
Yeah. I look at it like this is how I like to explain it is if you were in the woods and you're taking a hike and you turn around the corner and there's a bear, right? Your body starts to freak out. Your blood pressure goes up. Your eyes focus in on where you need to run. Your whole body stops for a moment to adapt to that stress. And if that just happens once, we recover, we go back to life. It's no big deal. But if you get away from one bear and then you turn the corner and there's another bear and then another bear and then another bear, your body starts to anticipate that bear. So you may go, decide, hey, I'm tired. I'm going to take a nap. So you sit behind a tree and you start to fall asleep. And the minute you fall asleep, your brain says, wait, there's going to be another bear. And you wake up. And your body chemistry stays in that anticipatory stress stage. Okay, there's going to be another bear sometime. And even when there isn't a bear, you imagine it, you embellish it, all of a sudden your body starts to adapt to that state. And what becomes normal is being in an anticipatory stress state, always being on edge, ready to pounce, ready to run, ready to go a different way. And how this relates in symptoms is quite funny because if you were running from a bear, you wouldn't remember where you ran. You wouldn't remember what color the flowers were or what path you took. And I can bet, I've done this like 1,000 times still to this day, you drive home from somewhere and you don't remember driving home, but you get home. You walk into the laundry room and you're like, darn it. Shoot, why did I come in here? And we start to worry about dementia. We start worrying about our brain failing when what it is, we're just so entwined in that reaction to the bear and the stresses in our life that we're not paying attention to the little details because we can't. Because if we stopped and smelled those flowers, we would be eaten. If we stop to fully sleep, to sleep deep, to get restorative sleep, the bear could sneak up on us and eat us. So we get in this adaptation stage and it starts to develop all these symptoms. And I know, there's basically two nervous systems that handles this. We've got our little fight or flight, our sympathetic nervous system, and our rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And they don't work well together. It's like we're supposed to spend 80% of our time at least in rest and digest. And we don't. We spend at least 80% of our time in fight or flight. And I think so many people think that means that you have to have this major stressor, like a death in the family or taking care of parents. And those are like icings on the cake. One of the biggest stressors that I find that most people don't pay any attention to is this little cell phone thing that we carry around in our pocket all day long, and it beeps and it buzzes. I mean, have you ever forgotten your cell phone at home or something and you're in the car and you're like, oh my gosh, where is it? Or you think it's buzzing in your pocket, but it's not. Or you haven't looked at your phone for an hour and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I better check my phone, right? So if you think about that's all anticipatory bear. Oh, I must have missed something. He's probably going to come around the corner in a minute. I better pay attention. So if anyone listening here finds themselves in that scenario, that is exactly stress. Your body is adapting to stress and anticipating the next thing. And unfortunately, that leads to what I believe all of the major conditions and diseases that we are dealing with in our society right now. Diabetes, heart disease, immune hit, anything from cancer to autoimmunity. A lot of the estrogen storage situations going on in children, younger, perimenopause, menopause, sleep issues, mood issues. I think the majority of people I talk to have some level of anxiety at this point. I mean, it's anticipatory, right? There's not even anything there, but we think there's something there. So I would encourage everyone, if you feel like you walk in the laundry room and you're like, why am I here? Then pay a little bit of attention. Are you maybe stimulating that nervous system more than needed and needing to spend more time being present and not allowing the body to worry about that bear?
Yeah, I'm going to mess it up. Mark Twain, I think, said something like, I've experienced many of harrowing experiences or harrowing events and traumas, none of which ever happened. Yes. It was something to that. That's the gist. That's not exact, but that's the gist of it. Our brain just loves to make up stories about what may happen.
I mean, I have a 16-year-old and he's getting ready to get his license on Friday. And I've already imagined all the things that can go wrong when he gets in the car. And that's silly. I have no basis for that at all. And he's never given me any reason to think that he can't drive okay. But I, of course, worry about it. We worry about so much. And it's just been normalized. And it's not as simple as, hey, just breathe. I mean, breathing, by the way, one of the best tips, one of the best techniques you can do, but it's not just as simple as that. There's so much that goes into changing the physiological response that you've now adapted to. You are a survivor. You are surviving. Your body is adapting. It's one of the reasons I went into endocrinology. I thought it was so freaking amazing that one thing could happen and all of the hormones could go, whoa, right? They could just all level out and balance you out. And in a moment, that's great. But chronically, obviously, if you have adaptations in one side, you have adaptations in the other side. And a lot of that with stress is nutrition. There's a lot of nutritional deficit. There's a lot of tricking of the brain, thinking that something's fearful when it's not. There's a lot of things that start to adapt that then indeed lead to disease and symptoms.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know how much you've read of Dr. Lisa Mosconi's work. She's at Weill Cornell Center and does a lot of studies of women in the transition of perimenopause to menopause. And one of the studies that they looked at, they were looking at brain imaging. So they were looking at a woman's brain and they were looking at women pre-birth, perimenopause, menopause. What I thought was really interesting is they were able, because they were watching a woman over time, to see the changes in the brain. And I've never had children, but most women will say, that pregnancy brain where all of a sudden all cognitive skills go right out the door. Anything you learned before is gone. Well, they saw on the scan exactly what was happening. And so when we go through pregnancy, that hormonal change, the brain just basically pops loose all of the mappings to the cognitive parts of the brain and then maps them straight into the amygdala, which is going to be that sort of protection. And it's probably evolutionary, right? Mom's got to care about the baby so they can survive. But the reality is that same superhighway is what you're talking about. You're seeing this sort of amplification of this fear-based, anticipatory freak out zone that's getting remapped all the time, And in some cases, like in a pregnancy and a birth, that's great, but we don't want to do it all the time.
No, and it does actually change the prefrontal cortex. When you continue to just stimulate the amygdala, it changes our decision-making skills. So then we start making choices that they might be small in the beginning, but they're feeding the brain patterns there. And another thing, the pregnancy brain always cracked me up because progesterone can actually turn into cortisol. So in a moment, like the body's like, bear, it'll take the progesterone and turn it into cortisol. And I think that's a lot of the reason why we get that fog. And it's like we're either completely sedated and like calm from the progesterone, or we're like freaking out and worrying about everything, right? And it's almost in a moment that we can switch. And I always found it so interesting. But yeah, the brain is absolutely fascinating to me because we actually control how that happens. And I don't think we realize we have so much control over our adrenal system and over the way that we look at the bear. I mean, what if the bear was always there, but it was a cute baby cub? What if it looked like Piggy? And in our brain, we weren't imagining this horrible thing. What if we were like, okay, it's a cub. It's all right. I'll just adapt my route. I'll just go this way, or I'll walk around it instead of freaking out. We're so quick to freak out because our brain has taught us when we see a threat, we should freak out. And we're not helping the situation with our technology. I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, I love that I'm here with you on a video call, being able to educate people. I think it's the coolest thing ever that I can reach so many people with this message with technology. But at the same time, the technology is also disconnecting us so much from each other, ironically, because we think, oh, we're so connected. We have 800 friends on Facebook and whatever, but we're not connected, right? We're disconnecting ourselves. Our nervous systems are being stimulated all the time by sounds and beeps and gratification and dopamine hits and all these things, blue light and whatever, that we're actually hurting our nervous system with something so amazing like technology. So I don't know what the balance is, except just to have people be aware of how much it's really impacting our health overall, and how much are we really getting together as a community and as people.
Yeah, because I do think, if you look at all the research, like loneliness has only increased, isolation has only increased, depression, anxiety have increased. Yeah, one of the big determinants of health span. And so, yeah, it is that we have this great way to connect.
I mean, I just had the pleasure of seeing you yesterday, 2 days ago, and to be able to hug you and talk to you in person and share that energy is just at a whole nother level of talking to you full screen. I mean, it's lovely both ways, but there's an energy exchange that needs to happen. And even when you look at the blue zones, people say, well, it's the diet. It's the diet. Well, not necessarily, because every zone has a little bit different diet, different cultural diets. But what they all have, every single one, is community. They sit down, they eat together, they talk, they help each other, they give, and we're just kind of all running around with our heads down in a cell phone and trying to do 800 things. I mean, we give here too. I'm a mom. I give every day. I feel like that's all I do is do everything for everyone else. But I really have to be mindful about remembering who cares for everyone and how to take care of myself so that I can be present. Because you know what? We could be gone tomorrow. Both my parents were young when they died. Was not expected. And I don't think they woke up that morning and thought, this is going to be the last day of my life, and they had all these plans. Oh, someday I'll go to Hawaii. Someday I'll travel. Oh, honey, we'll go to lunch when I'm done with my work. You have all these little things you say without your day. I'll start this diet after Christmas, or what, we'll start Friday, or it's the weekend. On Monday, we'll do this or that. We have this habit of putting things off when the reality is this may be it. So if today was your last day, how would you want to go out? What would you want people to say? How would you want to feel? Because every day we postpone taking care of ourselves is one more day that we're not taking care of ourselves, and we want to be perfect at everything. And we don't have to be perfect. We just have to right now be it. Say no to things, and I think that's something that we tend to forget when we get caught up thinking of the bears. We forget that, we might go the wrong way and fall right off the cliff and never know any different.
Absolutely. No, I agree completely. So let's get into, in case my listeners don't know this, let's talk a little bit about the hormone symphony and cortisol and how they all sort of play together. Because again, you're right. I went through similar things, thyroid issue. I've been on every possible dose of thyroid medication. Tried to take myself off of it. I can't do that. But it was always like, you need more and more. And I'm like, I think it's an adrenal problem. You know? So let's talk about how they're interwoven, because a lot of women are on this like seeking path and they're frustrated because they can't get answers.
Yeah. So you can think of the endocrine system or the hormone system as like a balance, as a scale. You know, if you put too much on one side, all the other scales have to balance out. For example, in thyroid's a great example of how the adrenals play a role, is that the adrenals are ultimately the ones that make a decision. Am I going to save my life or not? So they're always going to win. I always say cortisol wins no matter what. It always wins. Or you're dead. It's one of the two, right? So it's going to win. So it sends a signal saying, there's a bear. I can't do this right now. So it's going to impact the way that the thyroid is utilized. And this is one example that represents all the different ways that cortisol can impact pretty much everything. So one, it causes the thyroid to store thyroid for later. Okay, so it says, okay, instead of turning it into an active thyroid to give you the benefit, I'm going to store some because guess what? I think there's going to be another bear around the corner and I don't know if I'm going to have everything I need to run for it, so I'm going to store it. It also impacts the thyroid because when we're running from a bear, we deplete our B vitamins and our minerals really quickly and our vitamin C. So those have an impact on the way that we convert thyroid into active thyroid, and it also has the effect of storage on that. Well, let's go through it this way. Minerals impact the thyroid. They also impact bone health. They also impact the nervous system. They impact pain. I mean, the way that we contract and release muscles, hair, skin, nails, mood. And then we have the B vitamins that are depleted directly by cortisol being released that help break us down food into energy, right? They help us convert hormones from one form into another. So they help feed our mitochondria. Our body is this huge conveyor belt of like a product line, and our product is energy. And without energy, we can't make anything. If we don't have the minerals and the nutrition available on that conveyor belt to make our end product, we can't regulate our thyroid. We can't regulate our hormones. We can't regulate our bone health. We can't regulate our heart well. All these things start to fall down. Our digestion fails, and then we have secondary nutritional problems. So the weird thing about how cortisol impacts the body is in every single system, and I talk about this in my book. I go through each chapter of it, talks about how cortisol impacts like the heart, the gut, the hormones, is that it impacts it directly by downregulating it, but it also impacts it by the nutritional deficiency and the retraining of the brain for the next stressor.
Ladies, are you ready to take control of your menopause journey? Introducing Mastering the Pause, the ultimate ebook that empowers you with the knowledge and tools to navigate this transformative phase with confidence and grace. Packed with expert guidance on hormone replacement, essential lab tests, personalized diet and lifestyle strategies, this book is your secret weapon to combat menopause-related challenges. Discover how to maintain a healthy metabolism, ward off belly fat, and embrace this new chapter of your life. Download your copy now at guide.hormoneshelp.com. That's guide.hormoneshelp.com. And let's make this a smooth and informed menopause transition today.
So when I sat down to write my book, I was like, okay, what are the top 10 medications in our country that we're essentially addicted to? Thyroid being one of them, right? Which sometimes you can't get away from, but you can use it different. But heartburn meds, that's a big one. And cortisol suppresses the digestion, which causes a regurgitation type effect from low stomach acid. And here we are taking all of these meds to block stomach acid. What if by just addressing the stress, the digestion was able to work and then you wouldn't have heartburn? So we would eliminate those meds as well. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, both directly impacted by cortisol. Think about it. When you see a bear, what's your blood pressure going to do? What are all the blood pressure meds doing? They're blocking sympathetic output. They're blocking that fight or flight response, a lot of them. Or they're playing with electrolytes, mineral balance, right? Or they're playing with aldosterone release from the adrenal glands, right? They're all having an impact on our cortisol system. So when you start going through all of this and all of these individual things, you'll see that cortisol has an impact on all of them. And it has to, because we have to live. That's our nature. We're going to adapt to live. So I think people always ask me, well, how would I know if I have adrenal fatigue or I have adrenal problems? And I would say, if you've gone to a physician with symptoms and you haven't been given any answers, but you've just been handed a symptom suppressive medication, heartburn meds, blood pressure lowering meds, thyroid meds without other supplementation and talk, autoimmune medications, anxiety medications, sleep medications, and nobody has said to you, this is why this is happening, the adrenals are being missed. And unfortunately, when you bring that up to many physicians, other than someone like yourself or myself, they just say, well, just go to counseling. Like, stress is normal, whatever. It doesn't have an impact. It absolutely has an impact. It has an impact on how easily we go through menopause. Like anything, like literally, you could name anything. And I can tell you exactly, we could have a game. We should play like, how does cortisol play into insomnia? Like, we could go on all day. How does it play into poor nail health? Like, I could come up with it. And when I started writing this down on this napkin in a coffee shop, it became my book. Because I was like, I can't find anything that cortisol doesn't play a role in. Do you know of anything?
Yeah, because I'm like, to me, that's your survival. That's their survival mechanism. Like the body, nature, right? Natural selection, nature cares about your ability to survive and procreate, period. Everything else is superfluous to that.
Well, yeah, and you're not going to procreate, by the way, when you're running from a bear. You don't have time. And women are like, oh, my libido stinks. I need to take testosterone. And I'm like, you know what? That's great if it's working. But a lot of the times what I find is women are running from bears all day long and their libido's low because they're running from a bear. I mean, women need more than testosterone. I mean, me personally, I have to be relaxed. I have to feel gorgeous. There's all these little intricacies that go into libido for women. And so what happens often is you put the hormone in, let's say testosterone, and the body says, oh, I've got too many bears. And it takes it and it either stores the testosterone as estrogen or it turns it into cortisol to react to the bear. So we have to always remember that stress will store or convert. That's what it does, stores or converts, or it uses it in low stress states. So those are the three things that it can really do. And it really becomes what I call the stress hamster wheel. Because once you're in it, you're like, oh, great. Now there's internal stressors, external stressors, and they're all feeding each other. Dr. Pingel, you're stressing me out. How am I going to get out of this wheel? And I'm like, just slow the wheel. Schedule times for it to run, Schedule maintenance on your conveyor belt. We schedule maintenance for our car. We get oil changes, we do tune-ups. We do all sorts of things for everything else. We make sure our kids get to the doctor. We do our dental cleanings. We do all these things for prevention, but we don't always think about how do we treat our adrenal glands in that same way? How do every single day we put a little bit of prevention into our life? Kind of like a bank. If you had a bank and you're trying to save for retirement, you put, X amount every single month into your savings so that you can retire and live this awesome life. But we're running so fast, we're not putting anything in our health savings bank. And then all of a sudden, come retirement, we don't have the energy, we don't have the health, we don't have what we need to live our lives out to the fullest. So I would just encourage everyone, just one thing, put a quarter in your health bank every single day, just every day, just a quarter, right? Because it's going to help fuel you for the future. And the adrenal glands is a great place to start because it's going to impact every single aspect of your body moving forward, no matter what it is. It's never going to hurt to treat your adrenal glands, ever. Never. It's always good to take care of yourself and self-care and love. Always.
Yeah, so let's talk about this because I'm sure my listeners are like, I get a pedicure once a month or I get a massage every 2 months. Yeah, I get my lashes done. Anybody who sees me, I have lashes done. But here's the reality. That is not self-care. It is a mechanism of self-care, but it is not the self-care we're talking about. That's not at the frequency necessary. So let's clarify it for some of my overachieving women who think that those little things that they do as maintenance is part of this.
Well, those are vanity maintenance, right? And you look gorgeous, by the way. And I get a massage every 2 weeks as well. And it's interesting because when I really wasn't well and really sick and really down and recovering from the death of my mom, and I was just depleted. I don't know how to say it any other way. I was just depleted. And I was going for massages, but during the massage, do you know what I was doing? I was thinking about all the crap I have to do. And my brain was like, right? I wasn't relaxing, right? And now, just making a conscious change in my brain when I go to get that massage and really work on my intention going into it and feeling, just being in the moment where I'm feeling where her hands are going and I'm feeling what she's pressing on and I'm allowing whatever emotion that comes out to come out. I'm not holding it back. I think we're taught, at least I was, don't always be real. Like, look like you have it all together, have your hair together, have your nails done, and that's lovely. But we also need to cry. We also need to deal. We also need to be real with ourselves and each other. So I think it comes down to intention. When you take a walk, yes, you're getting exercise, but are you working while you do it? Are you, talking on the phone, or are you listening to the birds, feeling the ground on your feet, breathing the air, recognizing the smells? It's really about in those moments of, I guess we'll call it self-care, that we're actually present in that moment and not taking ourselves out of it. One of my favorite things to do is to walk with a friend. Because I don't know, girlfriends, we can complain, we can get it out. And then by the end, you feel so much better. So start with, in those moments that you take for yourself, really making the most of those moments. The other thing is to use technology to your advantage. So on your phone, once an hour, set a timer for 1 minute, okay, during your normal day. So let's say 12 hours. So I'm asking for 12 minutes a day. Do you have 12 minutes a day? 12 minutes less of TV, I guess. I don't know. Set your alarm that says, check in with yourself. Take some deep breaths. Sit there for a moment, no matter where you are. If you can walk outside, even better. Like, that's even better. If you can take your shoes off, walk outside, step in the grass, just take some big, deep, full breaths. Practice some gratitude. Everyone always has things that go wrong, always. But are they wrong? If you look at them differently and you're like, well, yeah, I ran late today, but I got 10 more minutes with, my son to have breakfast, You never know what could have happened in that 10 minutes if you left on time. Maybe you weren't supposed to leave on time. Like, maybe it's just the way the day was supposed to go, and showing gratitude for that and just taking a minute once an hour to just remind yourself the beauty of the world, the nature, our ups, our downs, our emotions. These are things that we're just so quick to suppress. And that's sad because we really do need to connect with them. And I find that practice within 3 days, if you did that every day for 3 days, there will be a difference. Have you tried that, Dr. Betty?
I haven't done the 12-minute thing, but definitely taking time to be present to some very, what we would consider mundane daily things, right?
Yeah, the word have to kind of drives me nuts. I say change that to,
Yeah.
Oh, I have to go make dinner. Oh, I have to go to the grocery store. And here's a powerful lesson for me is you get to. So when my mom was dying of cancer, right, she was weak. She couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. Like, she couldn't stand up and walk to the bathroom. And we go to the bathroom multiple times a day and don't think anything about it. You don't think anything about it until you can't. So all these little things we do every single day. We get in the car, we drive to the grocery store, we buy groceries, we feed ourselves, we know how to make things. There might be a time where you can't, right? And I think we forget that. We get so caught up in the big things that we want to achieve. Oh, we want this money, or we want this job, or we want to, have the perfect this, that, and this. And I just learned to appreciate that, man, I woke up this morning and I went to the bathroom. Like, awesome. I walked there, right?
Yeah.
And then I went downstairs and I said hello to people, and I pet my dog. What a lovely thing to just be in that moment, because it doesn't always stay that way. And women, we beat ourselves up even physically all the time. We're like, oh, I hate my body. I hate my body. And someone said to me once, they were in their 60s and they said, and I was in my 30s, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm beating myself up like women always do, right? And they're like, I would give anything to have my body, my 30s body now in my 60s. We're trying to compare. I was trying to compare myself to how I was in my 20s. Well, now that I'm almost 50, I would give anything for that body I had at 35, right? So we forget when we're in that moment, we're always comparing to what we had, when there's so much beauty in what we have right now. So if there's any takeaway to your audience, you are where you are right now because this is where you're meant to be. What happens tomorrow is completely up to you. We don't have to worry about what's happened in the past. We just have to be present right now and make one choice on how we want to move forward in the next minute. Because the minute we just talking is gone. I can't do anything about it, but I can change what I do in the next minute. And you are beautifully where you are right now, because this is where you need to be, because it's giving you an opportunity to make a choice, whatever that may be. And that opportunity is the most beautiful thing that we have, because that's life. Life is full of choices. So make a choice that gives you the most benefit right now. And don't worry about it. You're perfect. You're lovely just the way you are. You're perfectly imperfect. And I just hope that everybody, men and women, walk away just recognizing how much beauty there is inside your soul. That is absolutely what it should be.
Yeah, because I think it's, especially as people in this immersed in science and medicine, people want to get down to brass tacks. Like, what do I take? How do I take it? How much of this? How little of that? And the reality is that connectedness to self, taking a moment, being aware, like I taught yoga for 10 years, way back. And, and I enjoyed it, but then I stopped teaching when I was driving like a bat out of hell, trying to get across town to teach a $25 class. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I'm getting in there like, oh my God, I almost killed myself getting here, and I was like, I'm not Zen at the moment. Like, I need a few minutes to like bring it down, but I was like pushing the envelope because patients would be late or whatever. So I quit doing it. It was funny because someone asked me, they said, well, do you still practice? And I haven't really done asana practice, truly in a long time. But what I did learn all those years of teaching and training was that the practice of yoga, or the meditative side of that, you do it every minute.
Every minute.
Like if I'm washing dishes, my meditation practice or my awareness practice or my presence practice doesn't require me to step on a mat. It requires me just to be checked into what I'm up to at the moment. Now, it's probably not washing dishes. Anybody that knows me, it's, I don't do a lot of housework stuff. But you know what I mean? Whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to stay present in that moment. I'm trying not to let my brain wander.
Yeah, and I used to love to wash dishes when I was a kid because I loved how warm the water was. Like, I just loved the way that the water felt on my hands, like something as simple as that. And you know I'm a dancer. Like, that's what I do. I love to dance. And another tip that I learned is that if you're really in the thick of it, what did you love to do when you were a kid? What brought you so much joy? Now go do it, because you get back into being a kid. You get back to being present in that moment. And dance does that for me. I don't think about anything when I'm dancing. So if I'm stressed out or I have a lot going on, I just turn music on and I start dancing. And it takes about 30 seconds and I'm back and present in my moment. So yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you can turn washing dishes into a Zen moment. Like you don't have to hire a doctor to figure that out. You just have to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you on the dancing, as you very well know. Music comes on, I'm dancing even if no one else is in the middle of a conference. I'm like, I don't care. The other beauty at being over 50, I'm like, if you don't like it, don't look.
That is a beautiful thing about that. Like, I really don't care if anyone thinks I look ridiculous. I mean, apparently, I do a lot of really dumb things in the moment, and not dumb, fun things. I do a lot of fun things in the moment, and I don't really worry about what anyone else thinks. But we live in a society where we worry what everyone else thinks, So authenticity is a big thing, and we're losing it. So I love your authenticity, Betty. I'll dance with you any day.
Thank you. Okay. So we talked about what I think you and I both would agree are the two most important parts of sort of ratcheting down the stress, which is being present in the moment and finding those small things that you can do every day. And then the act of community. I want to share this because it was from Ashok Gupta. I was riding in a car with him over this weekend, and he was talking about in England, the National Health Association, the national health requirements. They'll take evidence from studies and they'll implement it because, of course, everything there is socialized medicine. So that means that the entire community pays for it. One of the things that he said, and I was just flabbergasted, they said if somebody came into a clinic and said they were anxious, couldn't sleep, worried all the time, which is probably 90% of the people that listen, the first thing that they would be required to do are one of two things: do some community activity or walk in nature. And they would actually refer them to a clinic that would help them figure those two things out, right? What nature walk are you going to do, or what community experience are you going to have? Because that disconnectedness was so important. And I was like, oh my God, what would happen to pharma if we actually just prescribed those two things?
It would go away. We would not have, metformin would not be one of our top medications. Opioid medications use would go down. It would be unbelievable. And that's the thing is, as a physician, we take an oath, first do no harm. So tell me something negative about connecting in community and walking in nature.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that we automatically go to the pharmaceutical. And I'm not saying there aren't times for pharmaceuticals. There are, but like, this isn't a standard. Yeah, it blows me away. And then it blows me even more away that we don't do it. Like, you could be like, go take a walk in nature every day and you'll do it for a week. And then it's like, oh no, I had a work project or a work meeting. I didn't get out today. And I'm like, no, put it on your schedule. I block my hip hop classes on my schedule. If I have something going on, someone's like, do you want to go out to dinner on Monday night? I'm like, nope, can't go out to dinner on Monday night, but I can do it on Tuesday because Monday night is my night for hip hop. Book that walk in your schedule. However, it needs to be. Book that time to sit down and have dinner with your family, with your spouse, with your dog, like whatever, but sit down and block that time. Because that's the first thing we give up, isn't it?
Yeah, we give up the things that are actually what you remember on your deathbed.
Well,
yeah.
absolutely.
Nobody sits there and goes, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got that last promotion after I worked 100 hours a week for the last 6 months, of that job. No one ever in the history of mankind ever said that. All right, so let's jump into, so we talked a little bit about the social aspects, the exercise aspects, the meditative / being present. What are like 2 or 3 other tips you could give my listeners? Like they're like, okay, cool, I get it. I'm totally stressed out and I need to do some things. What are like 1 or 2 other things that they need to really get checked in on?
Yeah, I look at 4 basic areas: nutrition, movement, supplement, and mindset. So we've talked a lot about mindset. We've talked about, movement, although I'd like to expand on that. That doesn't mean going to the gym and pushing your body to its extremes. And I see so many women doing that. I'm not losing weight and I'm working out 4 hours a day and I can't figure it out and I'm eating nothing and I'm not losing any weight. So the nutrition and the movement go together. Number 1, when you eat nutrition, it's about eating nutrition, nutritionally dense food. Is that paleo? Is that vegan? Is that keto? It doesn't matter. It depends on where are the deficiencies in your body from stress and what diet is going to replenish that. And really looking at nutrient-dense food. When you take a bite of food, ask yourself, what am I getting from this bite of food? And we spend so much time focusing on calories or on, grams of this or that, where I'm like, well, how much vitamin C is in that? How much magnesium is in that? How much protein is in that? Like, what are the actual components of the food you're putting in? When you're under stress, your body is depleting nutrients faster than it can replenish them. So the food has to be very nutrient dense. The movement, similar to what we were talking about, needs to be intentional, present, intentional. You can get just as much benefit, in my opinion, from strength training, yoga, Pilates, walking, as you can from lifting heavy and going to Orange Theory if you're mindful. You're mindful in it and you're present in it. Number 2. Supplement, this really requires working with someone at this point. I mean, yeah. Can I recommend some general supplements that we deplete that are good for people with adrenal fatigue? Of course, vitamin C, methylated B vitamins, minerals such as magnesium, zinc, selenium. I always think a good probiotic is essential, right? Those are some of the foundations. But if you're someone that's having symptoms, sleep problems, hormone problems, headaches, high blood pressure, all of this, going to a doctor who does a full workup that actually looks at the balance in the body is so important, because our body is like an ongoing chemical reaction, like A plus B goes to C. So if you're putting in a ton of nutrients at F, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to do it in the right order at the right time, because often by giving A, or whatever's over the arrow to go to C, you actually down the line fix everything else. So I think working with someone with supplement is really important. But that would be, and then the mindset piece, which we spent a lot of time on. So those 4 things I have found have to be addressed. And I find that most of my clients come to me and they've got a lot of the nutrition down, maybe just some small tweaks here and there. They're exercising every day. They're taking supplements, but they're not present in it all. And so without all 4, you really will only get so far. You'll hit a plateau.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that about the supplements, because, we're bombarded as somebody that's formulated supplements and I use them in my practice. We get bombarded and it's like, well, I saw this ad on Instagram and it said, that this adaptogenic mushroom, let's say, not pointing out any particular brands, is great for the adrenals. And I'm like, there's a billion things that are great for the adrenals. Whether they're great for your adrenals is a whole nother story.
What can I take for insomnia? And my first question is, I do a live Q&A every Friday, and people are like, what can I take for my headache? What can I take for insomnia? And I said, well, why is it happening? And they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you can take all the valerian you want at bedtime. But if your sleep issue is due to cortisol binging in the middle of the night or a cortisol dysregulation, it's not going to help, right?
No.
It's like if you were in the woods and you're running from that bear and you go to take your nap and you take Xanax. That's like someone coming along from behind you and whacking you over the head with a mallet, and you fall to the ground and you're, quote, asleep, but you're not asleep. Because in your brain, you're like, oh my God, I'm dead on the ground and there's a bear coming. Oh my gosh, there's a bear coming. Oh no, there's a bear coming. So in your body, internally, these nutrients are being depleted. The neurotransmitters are being imbalanced. The liver is not clearing toxins. All these things that are supposed to happen when we rest aren't happening. And you can do that with supplements too. You can absolutely give the wrong supplement. We can't treat symptoms with supplements. We can only treat the reason why the symptom is happening with supplements.
No, absolutely. Because it's essentially green medicine. So if you go down the aisle and you're like, okay, I'm going to pick up this thing here because this treats this, or this is for, I guess you can't say that in supplements, but this is for my adrenal fatigue and lack of energy. This next one is for my sleep. You're essentially doing the exact same thing we do with drugs, which is pick a symptom, slap a drug on it. Pick a symptom, slap a drug on it. So instead, you're just replacing one with the other. You're putting a supplement in. And we're much more nuanced than that. We're much more complex than that. And I think that's what I see. I'm sure you see people like shopping bags full of crap. They come in, I'm like, so who talked you into that one? Was that off Instagram? I saw them. They've been advertising, and they're like, oh my God, yeah, I fell for that. And, it's so seductive to just pile on stuff. I get it.
Absolutely. One of the things in an upcoming challenge I have is to go through your supplements and throw away the ones that are crap. And most people, they're like, oh, yeah, it was cheap and you got it at some big warehouse, but it didn't give you anything. It didn't give you what you needed in that moment. Our body's a lot like a highway where, we have these detours when we have a symptom. And if you shuttle everyone on the same detour, it's going to get congested, So supplements work by diverting where the traffic goes, to reconnect it and put it back together. So we don't all take the same exit. We don't all have the same detours, so we have to look at that holistically with a provider that really can understand what's specific to you, and then utilize high quality supplements that are actually absorbable, that your body can actually use so that you can repair that highway. And then ultimately, my goal is you don't have to fill that hole too much. Like it repairs and you can ditch that supplement because now you're really looking at honing in on the body's natural ability to maintain itself with minimal supplementation instead of just bottles and bottles. I mean, I have people come to me and they've got like 40 some supplements. I'm like, they're counteracting each other at this point. Your liver's probably like, what the heck? Supplements are not always the answer.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned you have a 5-day challenge coming up. Tell my listeners about that.
I do. I have a challenge, and the first 4 days are going to go into my 4 pillars. So there'll be 1 day on nutrition, 1 day on movement, and yes, there'll be some dance in there. Anyone who follows me on Instagram, if you like dance, that's where you find me because that's where I dance. And then there'll be a day on supplements and reading supplement labels, and then a day on mindset and things you can do to really calm the body down. And then the 5th day, I'm going to do a more extensive masterclass. And we're all going to get together. We're going to have a live Q&A. We're going to talk about it. I'll be popping in every day to check on people. So I'm really excited for that. It's coming up early September.
Awesome. So we'll make sure to have that in the show notes. And then also you popped your book up really quick. I want you to hold it up there because this is kind of a Bible to adrenal issues.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it literally, each chapter talks about a top condition in our country. So I'm sure that many of you out there, maybe you have hypothyroidism. Maybe you have IBS, you have sleep issues, you're going through perimenopause, menopause, you have heartburn, you have anxiety, depression. Each chapter talks about how cortisol impacts that and gives you a plan. There's a nutrition plan in here, there's a movement plan, there's information on supplements and why they're used, and also a mindset plan. So it's a great starting point to just start to learn more. When we're educated, it's easier to commit. When we don't know why we're committing, it's not so easy. So you can find this on Amazon. If you order it from my website, though, drpingel.com, I will sign it and send it to you. So if you want a signed copy, make sure you order from my website.
Cool. So make sure we'll have both of those in the show notes as well. Dr. Tricia, thank you so much for being on. Like I said, I was super excited. I'm super pumped. We're both exhausted because we got stuck in air traffic control problems yesterday coming out of Boston. So everybody's flight were delayed, And so we're both probably a little bit tired this morning, but she's a big part of my tribe, my like family away from family. And I just adore you.
I adore you too. And I just want to hug you. And I'm going to be hugging my computer screen and the kids are going to say, what are you doing? Yeah, tired or not, I think it's a great conversation.
Exactly. 10, 15 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been in the case. I'd have been like, I need to reschedule. I have the gas tank now. I do. Thank you so much for being on. So everybody check out Dr. Tricia Pingel, and I will be back with you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Menopause Mastery Podcast. You are why I'm here, and I am so very grateful. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any wisdom on creating the most exceptional life on our terms. If this episode has helped you in any way, please share it with a friend to spread the love, and together we rise. You can follow me on social media at Betty Murray, PhD, and you can reach me online at bettymurray.com.